Thanks a lot for these introductory remarks. I'm Michael Villa, I'm indeed the Executive Director of smartEn, and I'm very happy to kickstart today's event, gathering the energy community in the CE regions with this keynote speech. Well, in the slide that you can see, I will indeed briefly outline the 5 elements or the 5 pillars of this intervention. Will indeed a brief introduction about smartEn, Smart Energy Europe, the business organization that I'm leading, and then an assessment of the energy crisis from our point of view on the different solutions currently on the tables. I will explain why demand flexibility is important, so to keep the flow that was started at the very beginning of this conference, and then how to activate this demand flexibility potential, and then a summary of these top recommendations. So let's start with who is smartEn. smartEn is a European business organization based in Brussels, which is gathering 75 companies, multinational scale-ups, startups, offering on the market technologies, digital and decentralized energy resources, but also services to enable consumers of all types, from households to an energy-intensive industries, to unleash their demand flexibility, really to activate their flexibility potential and interact with the energy system to flexibly adapt their consumption, storage, and on-site generation. In total, these companies are responsible to manage around 13 gigawatts of flexible capacity in 15 European countries. Just to let you understand the size, this 13 gigawatts of flexible capacity is comparable to 27 gas power plants of the biggest size of the gas plants in Belgium. So 27 of these plants. As it was stressed at the beginning, we are living in an affordability crisis. It's on the news even before the start of the war in Ukraine, and this indeed added a security of supply concerns that is on the top of the European Union political agenda, but also of all our governments. Different solutions have been contemplated, from the retail level to the wholesale to the demand and supply side. But the key ones, the most cost-effective one, as we believe, are the ones that are enabling consumers to play a relevant role. First of all, to enable them to become prosumers, so to deploy renewables on site to really offset the skyrocketing energy prices, individually, but also in the community, in the local energy community they are part of. So really a push for local communities, whether they're going to be citizen energy communities or renewable energy community, is the way to go forward. And then it's very important to eliminate all the blurring effects to their electricity prices, like taxes, levies, and instead of indeed introducing regulated tariffs that are limiting the signals for consumers to adapt their consumption in a time-dependent way. Another very positive development that we are experiencing very much now in these moments is the introduction of measures to flexibly stimulate this consumption, notably by introducing a peak electricity demand, which I will discuss about that later on. The other solutions are maybe not that cost effective, and their inputs to help consumers to reduce these costs now, not in 5 years, not in 1 year, are not that efficient as these ones. So the way forward, as it was indeed highlighted before, is to really unleash the demand flexibility potential of all consumers, thanks to the different digital and decentralized energy resources that are deployed now, and they will be increasingly deployed throughout the years. And what we are talking about: controllable loads in our homes, offices, and industries, but also storage assets that can be indeed static storage assets, but also electric vehicles, which are indeed batteries on wheels, which can indeed flexibly provide flexibility to the system through a smart charging, but also a bidirectional way of charging an electric vehicles, and then small-scale renewables, as I was mentioning before. So the beauty of this decentralization of the energy system is really the paradigm shift that we need to embrace to enable that a reliable, climate-friendly and efficient system is going to be developed through consumers at the very much heart of this transition. So I told about the need and the value of demand-side flexibility. How to unleash this potential? Well, we identified six ways to activate this potential. The first one is to actually to implement the existing electricity market design. So it's really to open existing markets to demand-side resources and to allow consumers to receive signals directly or through aggregators to unleash their demand-side flexibility potential. Another key driver, enabler to activate this flexibility is to actually deploy more flexible resources. So to really make our buildings system integrated, our vehicle capable of integrating with the system that they are connected to, and the same also for our industries. But we need to have flexible capacity, we need to have digital and decentralized energy resources that are increasing this flexible capacity that is already deployed now. The third element is to actually to incentivize, to stimulate these potentials. So law, legislation is also helping in that sense. Another important driver, enabler of the activation of this potential is instead digitalization. We need to have data that is shared real time, connecting all levels from consumers to system operators and also flexibility service providers as aggregators that are enabled to share in interoperable way data to indeed unleash this potential. And then we need to have a quantification for the long term of this flexibility potential from demand-side resources. This is not done at the moment in a cohesive and coherent way by regulated entities like system operators, but also national authorities, and this is extremely important to really quantify their potential, see the impact for both the system and for the consumers, and this will be a driver of this activation of the flexibility that is already on the market. And then, last but not least, communicate, raise awareness. Demand-side flexibility is different from energy efficiency. Energy efficiency is leads to a static saving of energy. Demand-side flexibility is a dynamic, time-dependent way of adapting consumption, storage, and on-site renewable generation. And we need to raise awareness among consumers of all types about this potential, in particular now in the current situation. So the first set of priorities that I was mentioning before is already established at European Union level with the electricity market design, while instead, in particular, the second and the third block of enabling factors is currently in discussion at European level through different schemes. The Fit for 55 package that is revising different directives on energy efficiency, on renewables, on buildings, on electric vehicles, and also very much on the emergency intervention that are going to be adopted soon to face the current crisis. I will focus now specifically on the very first pillar. Why? Because indeed we had, as I said, already these principles set at European level with indeed the electricity regulation and the electricity directive that are indeed identifying what needs to be done to eliminate the barriers, to activate this flexibility potential. It is a framework from 2019, but until now, the 20 articles very much relevant for demand side flexibility have not been implemented across Europe. This graph is indeed showing the current reality. We did a first map as smartEn of really looking at monitoring the implementation of this legislative framework. And in 2020, there was nothing, almost nothing across Europe. There have been some timid developments in the last 2 years, but this is really an opportunity that needs to be considered now because of the positive implications of that could be provided now, in particular to the current crisis. What do I mean? There are, in this European framework that needs to be implemented now by member states, there are provisions to enable system operators to open their markets or create new markets like local flexibility markets by DSOs, or make sure that system operators like TSOs are opening their ancillary services or balancing markets to demand side resources. There are timid evolution in that sense. Still frameworks for demand response aggregations or minimum bid size that are still too high compared to the framework that has been set at European level. And these are barriers that are limiting demand-side solutions to reduce the prices that will be shaped in the wholesale markets. Other frameworks for local energy communities are still in their infancy in a lot of member states, as well indeed as for independent aggregators frameworks, as I was mentioning before. Last but not least, also we see that the dynamic price concept, so this kind of implicit way of allowing consumers to flexibly adapt their consumption, are currently in risk because of the willingness to introduce regulated prices as a way indeed to protect consumers, but this protection will then not enable their flexible adaptation to the signals that they are received from the system. I would now indeed very briefly touch on one specific stimulus for the activation of demand flexibility in the current situation, which is currently discussed in Brussels very much at the top ministerial level, which is indeed a peak electricity demand target that might be introduced at national level. This will be a way to allow indeed the consumers to unleash their flexibility potential and at the same time reduce their costs and also diminish the needs to consume gas. We have estimated that in 2023, if this demand flexibility potential from consumers is activated, we would avoid the need to activate gas peaking power plants, and this will lead to minus 3.7% in Russian gas imports. And this is also going to lead to a savings of 16 billion in total gas costs if indeed this flexibility is activated now in 2023. So that's very important to consider consumers really as the enabler of the clean energy transition, but also the key players that could have a role, active role in the current situation and not be considered as the passive victim of energy geopolitics. So we really need to activate this potential. So member states have currently all the frameworks set at European level that needs to be implemented. No need to engage in lengthy discussion on the revision of the electricity market design. Yes, some improvements are needed, but the framework that we have already define all the rules to enable consumers to indeed receive the signals to activate flexibility. So it's extremely important to focus now on the implementation of these 20 articles of relevant for demand flexibility activation. And then stimulate, as I was saying before, stimulate this activation through a peak electricity demand reduction target, which will indeed allow consumers to flexibly adapt to when the system needs more, and at the same time also have a lower cost in their bills. And last but not least, foster prosumer business models that are going to help deploy more variable renewables on site, so that this is going to be a cost-effective way to achieve our transition. I close by inviting you all to join on the 28th of September, an event that we are organizing in Brussels. It will be also going to be streamed, where we are going to quantify the demand flexibility potential in 2030 at European Union level. It has never done until now, and in this event we are going to provide the figures resulting from this calculation. Thanks a lot for your attention.
Thank you, Michael, for the presentation. It was a little longer, so I will ask just a single question. Looking at the Slido, I see a question about DSR. It seems that supply side producers of power are typically the first ones who participate in the market. Are somehow a favorite for providing ancillary services well before demand side. Why is it the case?
Yeah, because of it's actually technical requirements that are not allowing demand-side resources to participate, of different type. I was mentioning a few of them, maybe a too high minimum bid size, or barriers for independent aggregators to participate, and products that are shaped just to allow some generation resources to participate to the market. So we need to have, indeed, the system operators to be the real neutral market facilitators that are enabling in an equal way all resources from supply and to demand to participate to unleash this potential.
Thank you. You just mentioned one word, independent aggregators. And so I have to ask the second question. Do you have experience with any market where there was a integrated aggregation, and then there was an independent aggregation? Could you describe us the difference between the two phases of the aggregation?
Yeah. Well, we are also experiencing that in our own membership of smartEn members. A few years ago, we had many more independent aggregators. Throughout the years, we have seen an acquisition of many of these aggregators by suppliers, retailers. So I don't know whether it's going to be the future, but we see a tendency in going in that sense. That's a matter of fact that we have experienced also within smartEn.
Okay, thank you, Michael.